Hey guys, how's it going? So today I'm going to show you how to make this really cool epoxy hybrid wooden pen. And this was a really fun project. I had a lot of fun making it, and it was also a little bit of a learning experience as I tried a couple of new things, and some of them worked, and honestly, some of them didn't do well. So let's jump right into it. So first thing I wanted to try that was a little new was to use the 3D printer to create what I was hoping was going to be a reusable mold. Now this is a yellow resin that was supposed to be a little flexible, and it wound up not being near as flexible as I thought, so I only got one use out of it. Now once it was printed, it was time to cut down what was going to be used for the wood. For this, I decided to use some scrap white ash that I had laying around, and the end of the board was really jagged and just kind of tore up, and I thought it would give this really cool random pattern if I could get it to take inside the pen. My big worry was that this was a slimline pen kit, and that honestly I was just afraid I wasn't going to have enough room or be able to make it large enough to keep some of the details I wanted in both the wood and the epoxy. Luckily though, I didn't have too much of an issue and everything came out really good. So I was using the bandsaw to cut everything down to shape and to make sure that when it fit in the mold, it only covered about half of the mold, so the other half would be epoxy. After getting the wood cut down, I decided to cover the inside of the molds with packing tape. Now this would allow the molds to release from the blank, but like I said, I was hoping to get multiple uses out of these molds and it didn't quite work. After getting everything taped up though, I went ahead and glued the pieces of ash in place and used hot glue for that. I didn't care if it went around the back or not. It wouldn't matter after it's turned. I only had to mix up a little bit of Total Boat epoxy, and what I decided to do was do two colors in this one pen and kind of mix them together. For this first color, it was a mixture of a red translucent and I believe wormhole color shift from KP Pigments, and in the Total Boat epoxy it looks great. And when I poured it, I poured half the epoxy color on one side and half the other color on the other. My hopes were that they would only sort of blend in the middle, and what I would wind up with would be this really interesting mix of the two colors. And for the most part it worked, but there was a few little issues with it. By the time it was turned down, there was a little more of the red than the color shift, but there's still some highlights and colors from the other color as well. And if you'll notice also, I did make a little bit of a mistake when making the mold on the 3D printer. I should have made the mold a good bit taller all the way around so I could completely fill it up with epoxy. But as this was already a pretty oversized mold for just a pen blank, it didn't really matter other than the fact that the epoxy poured over the sides. And like I said, it wound up being that I couldn't reuse the mold, so it really didn't matter in the end. But after I got all the pour done, I threw the blanks into the pressure tank, and then once they were fully cured, went ahead and got them out of the molds. Again, I had to destroy the molds, so I didn't really film any of it. And then got them on the lathe to start getting them ready to actually turn it into a pen. So the first thing I had to do was to bore a 7mm hole all the way through both blanks to allow for the pen cartridge or sleeve to slide into the center. Using some pen blank jaws for the lathe made this job much simpler. I didn't have to balance out the blank near as much. It helped a lot, so I really highly suggest keeping that in mind. After that, I measured out the cartridge that would be in the end of the blanks and then cut the blanks to length so that there was just a small amount of material hanging over each side of the insert once it was inside the blank. Before you actually insert the tube into the blanks, make sure to remember to scuff up the tube really well, and this will allow the glue to have some surface area to actually stick to and really hold tight to the inside of the blank. The easiest way to do this is just spin that tube inside a roll of like 80 grit or 100 grit sandpaper. After this, you want to use some CA glue or epoxy and place it on the tube. And then as you're sliding the tube into the blank, rotate it so that the glue spreads evenly all the way around the inside of the hole. And this will give you the best hold for that cartridge. with the cartridge glued in place. Give it a little while, make sure it's good and dry, and then use a pen reamer to actually flatten out that area of material as well as the top of the cartridge. And this also removes any excess glue that you have in the top of that cylinder to make sure that the components of the pen kit fit nice and tight. This can be done with the reamer tool and just a simple drill. You don't need anything crazy for it. After that, you're ready to get it chucked up on the lathe and get to turning. Now, when you're turning these, really you can turn them to any shape or size that you want. It's kind of user preference. I decided that I wanted a little bit of a stranger shape to it, just because I don't care for the super thin grips, thin line pens. So I just wanted to do something a little weird, I guess. So I decided that once I had the ends of one of the blanks down to the diameter I needed to match the pen parts, I wanted to kind of dish out the center and leave a couple of high bulbs on the top and bottom of each of the blanks, but also have them at a little bit different size, as with the back side would be sitting against the top of your hand. So it's okay if it's a little larger than the front, or at least in my opinion it is. Another thing to keep in mind is that the bushings on the pen kit mandrel are actually the size of the large end of the tip of a pen kit. And I don't know if this is for all pen kits, but I do know it works for the slimline kits. And you can just turn down so it's pretty much even with that bushing, and you know it's going to be a nice neat fit to the cone of the pen, or to the point of the pen. So after getting the blanks completely shaped out to this weird conical shape that I wanted, I decided to go ahead and start sanding out and use the sandpaper to kind of finish off a little bit of the shape. So I started with 80 grit and then worked my way up. At somewhere around 1,000 grit, I started wet sanding before applying the finish. While wet sanding, you don't have to use a ton of water, just a small squirt bottle is fine. You just want to keep enough water to clean out your sandpaper as you're cleaning, but you still want to feel resistance on the paper. If you don't feel resistance, you might have a little too much water. Now, on this particular pen, I added a CA glue finish with Starbond thin CA glue, but had some technical difficulties, so unfortunately it wasn't caught on camera. I will do a full video on how to do a CA glue finish on these. But after that, I started with 1,500 grit micro mesh and worked my way up to 12,000 grit before breaking out the E Ultra Shine polish and then polishing it to a really high gloss shine. And it just popped. This is a really, really cool look. And the epoxy with the red color and this lighter color wood with some blue showing through looked really good. Now it's time to put the pen together. You start off by putting the tip into whatever end of the blank you would like to use. Using the press, place the tip and just push the tip into place. All these parts are held together with friction. You do not have to glue anything. While doing this transmission piece, as you can see, there is a definite line there right above that brass circle, and that is the marker line for the depth of your transmission piece. Once you get that piece pressed into place, make sure you take the ink well or the actual writing portion of the pen, put it in place and twist it to make sure that the length the tip comes out is how you want it. It's not too much or not too little. If it's correct, go ahead and add the second portion of the pen or the second blank, as well as the center ring. And what you're going to do here is line it up how you want it. Remember, once the pen's not being used and together, if you're going for a specific pattern or look, keep that in mind while pressing the pen pieces together. Once you get the back section on, you can go ahead and put the pocket clip and the butt cap in. Again, when it comes to the pocket clip, same idea as the secondary blank or secondary portion. whenever you get it to wherever you would like it to sit, make sure to press the butt cap in at that time, and keep the pin clip, or the pocket clip, excuse me, where you would like it on the pin while pressing in the butt cap. Once it's all together, you're all good to go. This thing is finished up and ready to start some writing. So I am extremely happy with how this pen came out. I honestly wasn't sure how the colors were really going to look together, but they wound up looking amazing. So guys, I really appreciate it, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and leave me a comment below with what you think of the pen, and if you think there's something I could have done better, or if you'd have chose different colors, what would you have chose? And also make sure to head over to my Instagram at jpaynewoodworking and give me a follow. And if you want to see the full detail article on how to make this pen, go check out jpaynewoodworking.com, and we'll see you guys on the next one.